Buckle up, Britain, because what you're about to read will make your blood boil and your heart race. The very soul of our nation, the hard-working farmers who put food on your table, are under siege. A catastrophic decision looms on the horizon, threatening to obliterate an industry that's been the backbone of this country for centuries. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, in a move that reeks of treachery, is poised to sacrifice British agriculture on the altar of European Union bureaucracy, potentially costing farmers a staggering £1 billion. Yes, you heard that right, a £1 billion nightmare that could leave our fields barren, our farmers bankrupt, and our food security in tatters. This isn't just a policy shift, it's a declaration of war on the rural heartlands of Britain. Before we dive deeper into this unfolding disaster, I need you to join the fight. Hit that subscribe button right now. Don't wait, don't hesitate, because this channel is your front row seat to the truth they don't want you to hear. Drop a comment below. Are you outraged? Are you ready to stand with our farmers? Subscribe today, because every voice counts in this battle to save Britain's future. Let's make some noise. Together, we can stop this madness. Now, let's get to the meat of this scandal. Senior Conservative voices, those who actually care about this country, have sounded the alarm, pleading with Starmer to rethink his reckless obsession with cozying up to Brussels. They're warning that his latest scheme to reset relations with the EU could unleash a tidal wave of devastation across Britain's agricultural sector. Picture this, hundreds of farmers, already stretched to breaking point, staring down the barrel of financial ruin. Fields that once bloomed with promise reduced to wastelands. Families who've toiled for generations forced to abandon their livelihoods. This isn't some dystopian fantasy. It's the grim reality that Starmer's policies are dragging us toward at breakneck speed. Farmers across the nation aren't just worried, they're downright furious. They're calling this a direct attack on their very existence, a betrayal so profound it's as if the government has plunged a dagger into the heart of rural Britain. We've been abandoned, they cry, their voices echoing from the rolling hills of Devon to the windswept plains of East Anglia. And who can blame them? After Brexit, these proud producers clawed their way to independence, adapting and thriving despite the odds. They embraced cutting-edge innovations like gene-edited crops, miracle plants that resist drought, fend off pests, and promise bumper harvests. Britain was on the cusp of becoming a global powerhouse in agriculture, a beacon of scientific progress and self-sufficiency. But now? Starmer's ready to torch it all for a handshake with EU bureaucrats who couldn't care less about our green and pleasant land. Let's break this down, because the stakes couldn't be higher. Brussels, that faceless machine of red tape and control, is dangling a so-called trade deal in front of the UK. Sounds nice, right? Wrong. It's a poisoned chalice. In exchange for smoother food export inspections, they're demanding that Britain bend the knee and adopt their suffocating agricultural standards. These aren't just rules, they're shackles designed to strangle UK farmers while giving EU producers the upper hand. Imagine the absurdity. British farmers, who've spent years perfecting crops that could feed the world, forced to ditch their progress and bow to regulations that favour foreign fields over our own. It's a slap in the face, a gut punch to an industry that's already proven it can stand tall without Brussels meddling. And the cost? Oh, it's astronomical. Experts are screaming from the rooftops that aligning with these EU policies could drain £1 billion from the farming sector. That's not pocket change, that's an economic apocalypse for an industry that employs thousands, feeds millions, and pumps £1 billion into the UK economy every year. Harvests have already risen by 1% thanks to Brexit's freedoms, but Starmer's ready to slam on the brakes and send us hurtling back to the dark ages. Farmers who backed Brexit, who believed in the promise of independence, now feel like they've been stabbed in the back by a government that's more interested in pandering to Eurocrats than protecting its own people. But it gets worse, much worse. The EU's stranglehold on gene-edited crops is the real kicker here. These revolutionary plants, think apples that don't rot, wheat that laughs in the face of drought, are banned in all but name across the EU, thanks to their draconian rules. Britain broke free from that nonsense after Brexit, forging ahead with research that's made us a world leader in agricultural innovation. Our scientists and farmers have turned fields into laboratories, growing fruits and veggies that yield more, cost less, and keep supermarket shelves stocked. It's a triumph of British grit and ingenuity, a £1 billion industry that's the envy of the world. Yet Starmer's plan to realign with the EU threatens to slam the door shut on this golden age, reimposing restrictions that would effectively outlaw these crops once more. Farmers are sounding the alarm louder than ever. This will destroy us, they shout, and they're not exaggerating. If Britain caves to Brussels, years of scientific breakthroughs will be tossed into the bin. Smaller farmers, already teetering on the edge, will be crushed under the weight of new costs and bureaucratic hurdles. Food prices will skyrocket. Yes, you, the consumer, will feel the pinch at the checkout. And worst of all, Britain will be forced to rely on dodgy imports from countries with lower standards, flooding our markets with cheap, subpar produce while our own fields wither. It's a disaster waiting to happen, a slow-motion train wreck that could set our agricultural sector back decades. Jerome Mayhew, the shadow business minister and a rare voice of reason in this chaos, has blasted Starmer's spineless surrender to Brussels. This government is selling out our farmers for a pat on the back from EU elites, he thunders, and he's spot on. Mayhew's warning is chilling. If Labour keeps down this path, British innovation will be smothered, jobs will vanish, and businesses will collapse. He's begging Starmer to wake up and smell the coffee, to prioritise food security, slash chemical dependency, and turbocharge economic growth by protecting our precision breeding advances. But does Starmer care? Hardly. He's too busy schmoozing with EU bigwigs to notice the livelihoods he's torching back home. And don't think this is just hot air. Farmers are demanding answers, and they deserve them now. Starmer's been dodgy about his plans, dodging questions like a politician caught with his hand in the till. His farming minister, Daniel Zenner, dropped a bombshell recently, hinting that the UK might align with the EU on gene editing rules down the line. Farmers nearly choked on their tea when they heard that one. Disaster! They roared, and they're right. Zenner tried to sugarcoat it, claiming Brussels is cooking up rules that share our objectives. Shared objectives? What a load of rubbish. This is a Trojan horse for EU-style restrictions that British farmers fought tooth and nail to escape. Industry leaders are calling it what it is, the first step toward handing control of our fields back to the EU. Let's talk about what's at stake here, because this isn't just about crops, it's about Britain's future. Gene editing isn't some sci-fi gimmick. It's the key to feeding a growing population in a warming world. Former Science Minister George Freeman has been beating this drum for years, and is horrified by Starmer's U-turn. Brexit gave us freedom to lead the world in this field, he fumes, and now Labour's throwing it away. His warning that Starmer's EU love-in could leave us dependent on overpriced, low-quality imports. Think wilted greens and tasteless tomatoes shipped from halfway across the globe. Freeman's not mincing words. Labour's selling out our farmers for a cheap deal with Brussels, and we'll all pay the price, literally. Farmers who've sunk their life savings into this tech are sweating bullets. They've bet big on gene editing, and now they're watching Starmer pull the rug out from under them. The government's own Precision Breeding Act, rolled out by the Conservatives in 2023 with Labour's backing, was supposed to usher in a new era of resilient, eco-friendly crops. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, promised it'd hit the ground running this spring, with the first commercial harvests by 2028. But with EU talks heating up, farmers are losing faith fast. Will they keep their word? They ask, voices trembling with doubt. DEFRA spokesperson swears food security is a matter of national security, but their actions scream the opposite, cozying up to Europe while our fields hang in the balance. And here's the kicker, this isn't just an English problem. Scotland and Wales have already clamped down on gene-edited crops, while Northern Ireland's stuck in EU limbo thanks to the Brexit border deal. England's been the Lone Ranger, pushing the envelope while the rest of the UK lags behind. But if Starmer gets his way, even that flicker of hope could be snuffed out. Farmers nationwide are begging for action, urgent, decisive action, to stop this runaway train before it's too late. But wait, there's more. As if this EU betrayal wasn't bad enough, Britain's farmers are now dodging another bullet. A foot-and-mouth disease outbreak tearing through Europe. Hungary and Slovakia just confirmed cases near their border, hot on the heels of Germany's scare 2 months ago. The UK's response? A swift ban on meat and dairy imports from those countries. Cattle, pigs, sheep, goats, you name it. Starting Sunday, travellers can't even bring a sausage sandwich from Budapest into Britain without breaking the law. DEFRA's on high alert, with Farming Minister Zenner vowing to protect our farmers at all costs. But after his EU alignment bombshell, can we trust him? Hungary's outbreak, the first in 50 years, hit a cattle farm with 1,400 animals, sparking panic across the continent. The 2001 foot-and-mouth crisis cost the UK a jaw-dropping £14.7 billion in today's money, culling 6 million animals and leaving scars that still haven't healed. Farmers are terrified history's about to repeat itself, and they're slamming the government for sloppy border controls. Tom Haynes from the National Pig Association is livid, accusing ministers of leaving Britain vulnerable with outdated biosecurity measures. We need a zero-tolerance crackdown now, he roars, demanding cash for frontline agencies to stop diseased meat sneaking in. The plot thickens. Just last month, banned German products were allegedly slipping into the UK, thanks to a glitch in the import system. NPA boss Lizzie Wilson told Parliament this week that illegal goods are sailing through border checks, labelled low risk by a system too dumb to catch them. DEFRA's pushing back, insisting they've got it under control, but farmers aren't buying it. With foot and mouth lurking and Starmer's EU flirtation threatening their future, they're caught in a perfect storm. So where does this leave us? Britain's farmers are on their knees, betrayed by a government that's traded their dreams for EU scraps. A billion-pound industry hangs by a thread, gene-editing miracles are on the chopping block, and a deadly disease looms at our borders. This is more than a crisis. It's a national emergency. Starmer needs to answer for this mess, and he needs to answer now. Will he stand up for Britain, or will he let our fields rot while Brussels laughs all the way to the bank? Don't let this story die here. Subscribe to this channel and join the fight. Comment below. Are you with our farmers? Are you ready to demand justice? Together, we can turn the tide. Hit that button and let's save British agriculture before it's too late.